The weight of my decision was finally sinking in, and I could feel it in every part of my body. The air felt thicker, heavier, almost as if the world was holding its breath. You see, this wasn't just another goodbye. This wasn't just another moment where people expected me to walk away and come back, where they thought the same old patterns would repeat. No, this time things were different. This time, there was no going back. I couldn't take another step in the direction I had been going. I stood there looking at them, and I could see their faces, the confusion, the shock, the disbelief. They weren't ready for this. They never would be. How could they be? After all, I wasn't ready for this either. But standing there in front of them, I realized that the time had come. The words that had been stuck in my throat for so long were finally coming out. "You won't see me again after this," I said, my voice steady, but my heart racing. The words felt like a heavy stone being dropped into an ocean, sending ripples through everything. They looked at me, trying to process what I had just said. They didn't understand. How could they? They thought this was another of my disappearing acts. They thought I would be back, but I knew better. I knew I couldn't go back. Not this time. The decision I had made wasn't one I could reverse. There was no taking it back. And honestly, I didn't want to take it back. The weight of staying had become too much. I had given everything I had, tried every possible way to fix things, to make it work. But there came a point when I realized that some things just couldn't be fixed. I knew they were searching my eyes for some kind of answer, some kind of reason that would make sense of all of this. They wanted a reassurance, a promise that everything would be okay. But I couldn't give them that. I couldn't lie to them. This wasn't just an emotional outburst, a moment of weakness that I would regret later. I meant it. I said it again, this time with more finality. "You won't see me again after this." Their faces changed, flickering between disbelief and fear. They weren't ready to accept that this was it. I could see it in their eyes. They wanted me to take it back. They wanted me to say that I was just being dramatic, that everything would go back to normal. But I couldn't. I couldn't lie to them. I couldn't tell them that things were going to be okay, when deep down I knew that they weren't. Staying, continuing this life, pretending that everything was fine, would hurt far more than leaving. I wasn't sure if I would regret this decision. Would there be moments down the line, when the weight of everything settled on me, where I would wish I had stayed? Would I miss the sound of their laughter, the feeling of their presence, the comfort of the familiarity we once shared? I didn't know. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. But what I did know for sure was that the pain of staying would be worse. And so, with a final look, I turned around. My heart pounded, but there was no hesitation. I took one step, then another, and kept walking. I didn't look back. Not because I didn't care, but because if I did, I knew I might stop. And stopping wasn't an option, not this time. I had made my choice. Every step I took felt heavier than the last. The world around me blurred, and I realized that even though I was walking away from everything I knew, it didn't feel like freedom. It didn't feel like a weight being lifted. Instead, there was a strange ache in my chest, a reminder that sometimes the right decisions still hurt. But I had to remind myself, this wasn't about what felt easy. It was about what needed to be done. I thought leaving would feel like breaking out of a cage, finally stepping into the world I had been waiting for. But now that I was doing it, it didn't feel like that at all. It felt like walking through a door that could never be opened again. It felt like leaving a part of me behind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it was a part of me I would never get back. As I walked, I kept telling myself that this was for me, that I had to leave. I had to break free, even if it was painful. I had to put myself first for once, because I couldn't continue to stay in a place that didn't want me. It wasn't just one thing that had led me here. It was everything. Every lie left unspoken, every moment of silence that hung between us, every unaddressed resentment. It wasn't just one problem, one argument, one mistake. It was a million tiny fractures, all coming together until there was nothing left to hold on to. I reached into my pocket and felt the note I had written to myself. It was a simple reminder, a few words that had been keeping me going. You don't owe anyone your pain. Those words had become my mantra. They had reminded me every day that I didn't need to stay in a place that didn't make me feel whole. I had to leave, not for them, but for me. I had to give myself a chance to breathe, to live without the weight of everything holding me down. And so, I kept walking, each step taking me further away from everything I had known. The city around me felt foreign, unfamiliar. And in a way, that was what I had wanted. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to start over in a place where no one knew my name, where no one expected anything from me. I didn't look at my phone, not even once. I didn't want to know if they were calling or texting asking me to come back. The decision had been made. There was no going back. And I meant it. This wasn't just another one of my disappearances. This was it. The road ahead was empty, uncertain. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was doing something for myself. I was finally choosing my own path. Choosing myself. I found a small motel on the edge of town, a place where no one would ask questions, a place where I could disappear without anyone noticing. The room was simple, sparsely furnished, but it didn't matter. It was mine. And for the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't worried about fitting in or being who people expected me to be. I was just me. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands shaking slightly as I tried to process what I had just done. I had left it all behind. The people, the places, the life I had known. And now, I was here. In a room I didn't recognize. In a city that didn't know my name. For the first time, I was free. But the question still lingered in my mind. Who was I now? The name I had carried with me for so long felt foreign, as if it didn't belong to me anymore. I wondered if I would ever be able to fully let go of the past. Could I really start over? Could I really become someone else? The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. The night settled in, quiet and still. I sat by the window watching the world move on without me. Cars passed by, strangers walked the streets, and I felt the weight of what I had just done. But there was no turning back now. I had made my choice, and I had to stick with it. Tomorrow would be a new day, a new beginning. I didn't have a plan, didn't know where I would go from here, but I knew one thing. I couldn't go back. The life I had left behind wasn't mine anymore. I had walked away, and that was the only thing that mattered. I grabbed my bag and stepped out into the morning air. The world was waking up around me, and for the first time, I felt like I was a part of it. The city felt strange, unfamiliar, but that was what I had wanted. I wanted to disappear, to become someone else, and I was doing it. One step at a time, I found a small cafe and sat by the window, my coffee in front of me. As I looked down at my ID, the name on it felt like a lifetime ago. It didn't belong to me anymore. And so, without hesitation, I slid it under my coffee cup, leaving it behind as I walked out the door. I didn't know where I was going next, but it didn't matter. I had made my choice, and that was all that mattered. They wouldn't see me again after this.